Alrighty, so before we begin this video, I just want to quickly share my quick thoughts in terms of the friendly match that just finished a moment ago between the US versus Belgium. And I'm not going to do a full review of the game as I originally anticipated because I actually didn't watch the whole game itself. And yeah, that second half was brutal. I mean, this game was actually competitive, at least in the first half. The US actually got a goal in the first half from Weston McKennie, only for that goal to basically disappear relatively quick, and then it kind of fell apart in the second half. And that's kind of been a bit of a feat for the US, where as soon as they face some adversity, yeah, things does not go so well. And I know there's going to be some people who will say that, well, it's mainly because the fact that once the MLS players comes in, that's when things have fall apart. But you got to remember when you look at how things are going, even before the MLS players would start to introduce, I think around like the hour mark, not looking great for the U.S. either. So yeah, let's not pretend the fact that once MLS player comes in, things just kind of fall apart, and that some might even say that we're not going to really see those kind of players during the World Cup itself, so there should be no big deal, right? Well, the thing is that kind of just shows you the fact that the depth of this team is definitely not where it should be, and the fact that if they do face some adversity, man, this group is really soft. Like that is what I'm worried about heading into this World Cup, where I know this team has the ability to beat some teams that they should be, and that there's no doubt that even in this game it doesn't really change my opinion. The fact that I still think that this team should be able to move on into the group. I mean, seriously, when you look at the group that they have, if they don't move on into the next round and get group like they did in Copa America, there's going to be a lot of finger pointings. That's going to have to be made. A lot of questions that's got be asked for this team. But beyond that, that's where the concern have to say about this team. I mean, winning the group and moving on, I feel like it's kind of the bare minimum. But when it comes to show some progress, which is something that U.S. fans would wanted to see this team, including even some unrealistic fan perspective in terms of them going deeper in this competition and going deeper into the World Cup, especially this being on home soil, it's definitely not looking that like it's going to be a good thing, especially when they face against a European opponent. They have had a lot of trouble when it comes to facing against a European team in a friendly and even going back to the last World Cup itself. But that being said, now that I got that out of the way, now let's actually talk about what we're going to talk about in this video. And I'll probably maybe even put a timestamp below to skip through 3 minutes into this video after my little pre-rambling about the U.S. getting absolutely destroyed by Belgium in this game, and most likely that might be the same thing that will happen on Tuesday when they play against Portugal as well. But now let's talk about the MLS Western Conference standings. So yesterday we did the Eastern Conference standing through 5 weeks. Now we're going to talk about the West. What's kind of interesting about the West is that when you look at near the bottom of the standings, it's not really separated by much. And it's not like in the East where, yeah, there are some really bad team in the Eastern Conference that got off to horrible start. I think, when you look at the West, even some of the teams that near the bottom, they actually haven't been that bad in terms of how they play. Now, a big part of it is because of the fact that when you look at some of these interconference matchups we've seen so far, the West have absolutely dominated like this year. I mean, it took us until I think match week number 3 until we finally saw an Eastern Conference team beat a Western Conference team. That just shows you how maybe we're underestimating the fact that the West is starting to become one of the more stronger conference now after for last couple of years. They always feel like the East was the much stronger conference, and I always talk about the bloodbath known as the Eastern Conference when it comes to all the good teams that eventually make it to playoffs. I feel like that might be starting to shift, especially with the way that the West have looked pretty good in all of these teams, and the fact that, like I said, so far in the interconference matchup and the battle between these two conferences, whenever we see East versus West matchup, the West have pretty much dominate most of this matchup itself. Now, that being said, when you look at near the top of the standings, I mean, they're just like the East. There are a couple of teams that you are kind of surprised to find themselves this high up in the standings, but I don't think a lot of people are surprised. The LAFC is in first place. I mean, year after year, I always say that LAFC is considered to be one of the favorites, if not the favorites in the Western Conference, and they are definitely the standard of greatness. And they're doing it again. 4-1-0 is their record, currently having 13 points. They've scored 8 goals so far this season, and they have yet to concede a goal. I don't know what's the record in terms of the longest to begin the season without conceding a goal. I think LAFC might have even a clip stat, but it is impressive the fact that for the first 5 games they have now gone over 450 minutes without conceding a goal and could approach 500 depending on what happened in their next match as well. The fact that how solid that defense has been. The goal scoring, I will say that when it comes to their attack, it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, there's been times where they've been good, and then there's times where they are like, it's kind of a little underwhelming. But because of how good their defense is, I mean, when you don't even concede a single goal, it is no surprise that they're unbeaten. I mean, when you don't concede a goal, you're not going to lose many games, if any, of what LAFC have done so far this season. Now, follow that is another team that is not a big surprise to be up there high up in the standings. That is the Vancouver Whitecaps. So, what's kind of interesting about the Whitecaps is that, yes, on paper, you look at the stats, it looks pretty good, but there maybe is a little bit of a concern. They're kind of like, I would say, I don't want to make them a comparison to what I said about Inter Miami, where their record is a little bit misleading in terms of how they play, because I think the Whitecaps they have shown at times that they have looked absolutely amazing, especially that win that they had against Minnesota, where they absolutely smacked them in that game. That's where the Whitecaps are at the best. But so far in this season, it's a bit of a downgrade compared to last season. But then again, I would also say that that's a high standard that the Whitecaps set last season of how good they were, just being an absolute wagon in the beginning of the season. 4-0-1 is the record. They did lost their first game of the season last week against the San Jose Earthquakes. They scored 14 goals. Of course, 6 of them came in that one game against Minnesota, and their defense have also been pretty good. Only 2 goals conceded. One of them came in the last game as well in the loss against the Quakes, and they have a godly plus 12 goal differential, which is the best in the Western Conference. But yeah, like I said, I think that Jasper Sorensen team could still be even better. I mean, I don't want to say that they're kind of in second gear. There's been times where they have shown that they've been in first gear, but there's also been times where you kind of say that, well, it's definitely not as impressive of how the Whitecaps have played compared to what we saw last season as well. And again, this maybe is just me trying to look too deep into it, and the fact that again that's maybe a little bit harsh to say, consider the heights that this team was, especially in the beginning of last season, so where they were absolutely untouchable in the beginning of last season. And then we get to our first big surprise of the where they are in the standings. Did not see this coming. I did not see the San Jose Earthquakes have this kind of a start with a 4-0-1 record and finish with or currently at 12 points. And while the goal scoring obviously hasn't been at its best, they've scored 7 goals so far. 3 of them came in the first game as well, so almost half of their goals came in just one game. They won a lot of 1-0 games as well. But the reason why they've been so good is that unexpectedly, the defense has been absolutely lights out. I mean, when's the last time I've said that the San Jose Earthquakes have a good defense? I think it's probably been years. Like maybe going all the way back to I would say maybe even 2019 or 2018. Actually, no. Almeida's team the defense, even with the man marking system, wasn't really that good. What I'm trying to say is, it feels like it's been an eternity since I've seen how good the Quakes have been on the defensive side, and they have a +6 goal differential. And it's not like the fact that they spend anything to improve their defense. As I'll talk about potentially tomorrow when I do a video talk about the Quakes, and also probably do a video about RSL, and maybe even combine them, talk about 2 of the more surprising teams to be up this high in the standings at the beginning of the season. One of the big reasons why the defense has been so good for the Quakes is, unexpectedly, it seems like Bruce Arena is once again working his magic with domestic center backs and domestic talent at the back line, because those 2 domestic center backs, Reed Roberts and Daniel Mooney, those 2 guys have just not only took a step up, but they look unrecognizable compared to last season. Both of those guys were absolute liability last season, and this season, for whatever reason, I don't know what Bruce Arena did to both of those guys, but magically they have turned into 2 of the better defender we have ever seen so far in the beginning of the season. Then we look at another team that's not a big surprise that they're this high up in the standings, and that, of course, is San Diego with a 3-2-0 record. They're one of 2 teams that have yet to lose a game in the Western Conference alongside with LAFC, and they currently have 11 points, scored 13 goals, conceded 5, and have a +8 goal differential. And so far, it's been decent start to the season for San Diego. There's no doubt that I think they're proving a lot of people, including myself, wrong with the fact that we haven't really seen as big of a drop off compared to last season. A lot of people were thinking, well, the second season syndrome, it's gonna start to come back to hit them, and they haven't shown that whatsoever. Even when they're battling CONCACAF Champions Cup play, which they no longer have to worry about that after getting eliminated by Toluca. I mean, there was no shame of losing to Toluca in the two-legged affair because Toluca is the back-to-back Liga MX champion. They are the powerhouse in the class of Liga MX. But yeah, San Diego has been looking pretty impressive so far in league play, and maybe we're a little unfortunate not to get all 3 points over the weekend against RSL. Then we look at in fifth place, and that of course is the Seattle Sounders. And I talk about all these teams right up there, kind of along there. Seattle is definitely another team that is there. But what's kind of surprising about Seattle is the fact that they are still continue to stay afloat despite the fact that they're on the midst of this long road trip. 3-1-1 record and currently have 10 points. And while goal scoring is a bit of a problem for this team, they've only scored 5 goals so far. The season they have had a lot of games that actually, you know what? I think that is wrong. There's no way they've only scored 5 goals. I recall that they score they really score only 5 goals so far this season. Let me see that. I swear that they score more than 5 goals so far. Because I know they scored two in their opening weekend against Colorado, and then they score one against the Quakes. Let me see. Is that true that they scored 5 goals? Actually, let me check on this website because for whatever reason this is not giving me the goal tally. Yeah, they've only scored 5 goals. That is a surprise. I would have thought that they would have scored more, but yeah, I mean the attack definitely has had its struggles but it doesn't matter. Their defense has been lights out, as you usually see with the Seattle Sounders. They always tend to have a good defense, and that's kind of the reason why it's kept them. And while they haven't been playing the prettiest soccer you can imagine, I mean, when you look at the goal tally and the goal differential, yeah, you can see that when the team only scored 5 goals throughout the first 5 game of the season, and it's not going to be pretty, but it doesn't have to be because, as I said, this team is in the midst of a long road trip. If they can continue to grind out resort, I mean, when you're on the road, you always are going to be a team that's going to face some adversity, and the fact that they're still able to grind out resort once they start to get a bit of a heavy home schedule, this is definitely a team that can definitely rise up in the standings. We already know how good the Sounders are at home, and yeah. Like I said, even though they're currently in fifth place, I wouldn't be surprised they might be higher up in the standings, especially once they get into the home stretch, and maybe the attack will improve itself. Then we look at the other surprising team that is Real Salt Lake, or should I say Real Monarchs slash Real Salt Lake, because it feels like this is a very Real Monarch kind of team. And this is a team just like the New York Red Bulls. It feels like Pablo Mastroeni has really leaned heavily to his youth, and I think the reason why he decided to do that isn't because of the fact that he's trying to start the youth movement, just like what we saw with Michael Bradley with the Red Bulls, but it's almost like he is forced to do so because of the injuries that he has to deal with, and now he's gonna have some tough decision to make because some of the guys that were out, now that they're start healthy. I mean, do you really want to replace some of these kids that have just been performing incredibly well at the beginning of the season with a 3-1-1 record and currently have 10 points. They've scored 9 goals while conceding 7 goals with a +2 goal differential. And overall, they're just such a fun team to watch. I mean, you just look at all the games that they play, even the one that they lost, they look like a team that is legitimately fun to watch, and a team that just have that never say die mentality. The game against San Diego was a prime example of it. That game, with the adversity that they face against San Diego and the fact that they definitely took some punches in the game against San Diego, and the fact that they were able to come back up stronger and continue to show that determination that we usually just don't see that with a lot a team. Just to show you how talented this team is, and I think now we can really start to believe that these young guns they can do it. I mean, they're definitely proving a lot of people wrong, and the fact that we said it many times before. Real Salt Lake, they probably have one of the most underrated academy in the league. Not a lot of people realize how good Real Monarchs is when it comes to the academy product that this team has had, and they're proving it again why that is the case. And also, it helps the fact that some of their new signings it finally started to become a hit. That was kind of another big missing puzzle for this RSL team, and why they haven't really been as good as people think that they should is because they have hit a lot of swing and a miss when it comes to finding other transfer besides their academy. Then we look at the Colorado Rapids, who has been a very polarizing team. The Rapids this season, they've been a team where at times they look like an incredible juggernaut, and then there's times where they look pretty bad. 3-0-2 is the record currently with 9 points. They definitely have an elite attack, scoring 11 goals, but conceding 7 goals with a +4 goal differential. And a big part of the why that they've been so polarizing is the fact that they're kind of like a classic MLS team from the past, where you always say like you need make sure you win all your home games, and also maybe trying to get some result on the road, and that will be a way to make it to the playoffs. Well, the Rapids are basically following that formula. They're getting all the points at home and on the road so far. Well, yes, they did had to road game where they were able to get anything. They got the points against Sporting KC in that last road game as well. So because of that, they're definitely following the formula of being a team that will make it to the playoffs. Now, will this team maybe be a team that can be right up there in the standings? Who knows? And the other reason why I also say that this has been a very polarizing team is the fact that so far, in some way, the Rapids are kind of reminding me a little bit of the Chicago Fire last season, where that team, of course, made it to the playoffs. But the reason why a lot of people weren't convinced that the Fire was going to do so much in the playoffs is because they mostly capitalize on beating easy opponents. That's what Colorado has been kind of doing. They've been beating against teams that they should beat, and then when they do face against some real competition like Seattle and NYCFC, they haven't really been looking up for it for those games. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a Rapids fan, you'll take it. Consider last season they didn't make it to the playoffs, but at the same time, you just hope that maybe eventually, with the way that they have performed so well against these good teams, man, they can just kind of continue that momentum when they do face against some good team. Maybe they would definitely sneak into the conversation of maybe a team to watch as the season goes along. Then we look at FC Dallas, and this is a team that I cannot believe how low they are in the standings. I've said before, I think Dallas is one of the sneaky good team this season, and yet the fact that they're all the way down in eighth place with 2-2-1 record, that just shows you how good the West is. There are some really good teams, like all these teams in the top eight, and even the team I'll talk about in just a bit, are have had a really good decent start to the season. They currently have 8 points, scored 10 goals so far while conceding 9. I'm surprised it's not higher considering how many crazy games that they've been involved, and they have a +1 goal differential. And like I said, this is such an fun team to watch. And this is kind of a very Peter Quill kind of thing, where that going back to his day with New Mexico United, his team always tends to be very fun to watch, always involving high scoring affair. Now, is that a good thing? I mean, depending on if you ask every Dallas fan how they feel that they're now being a very entertaining team, but at the same time can be very frustrated at times because their defense, yeah, I mean, there's been times where defense have suffered a lapse of concentration, but that maybe is due to the fact that they've been pushing so much man forward and focused so much on the attacking end that you're going to, of course, have to sacrifice some defensive reinforcements. So yeah, overall, I mean, I guess Dallas fan will take it because they probably got sick of seeing Nico Estevez ball for a couple of years. But I do think that this team is sneakily a very good team, and if they could actually get that number 10, and that's a big if, even though I know they're linked with Santi Marino, which again, I don't know if that's kind of the answer that they need. But if they can get a decent number 10 to partner alongside with Musa and Farrington, watch out. This is going to be a very dangerous team, and a team that, just like last season, flying under the radar. A lot of people don't know how good they are until when they face them, and now they realize how good they really are. Then we look at the Houston Dynamo with a 2-0-2 record, currently with 6 points, whilst having 8 goals, conceding 9 with a -1 goal differential. I would say, for Houston, just like what I said with the Houston Dynamo, they're kind of inconsistent so far in the beginning of the season. There's been some good moments, and then there's also some bad moments. The last game was for the example of it, where their defense was not up for it. Though, again, that was kind of expected with the way that this season. I knew that defense was not going to be up for it. That was kind of the one area that I think they probably will have to address in the summer transfer window. But at least the attack is much better this season. I'm not surprised, because when you got the likes of Mateus Bogut and That the recent acquisition of Guilherme, who I didn't think he was gonna do so well in this league. His number wasn't really good coming into this league, and yet now he's putting up some good number in and make the attack much more fun to watch. Yeah, this is a team that it could be a fun team to watch on certain day, and Houston Dynamo fans will take it because this team was very boring to watch last season and was at times very frustrating, almost Benny Ball as kind of like last season. And the reason why I mentioned Benny Ball is because Ben Olsen is still in charge of this team after all. Now let's talk about teams that is below the red line. Starting off with the LA Galaxy with a 1-2-2 record and currently have 5 points while scoring 7 goals and conceding 8. The Galaxy, it's been a very frustrating start to the season, and I'm even surprised the fact that they scored 7 goals. It does not feel like this team have scored a lot of goals consider all the issue that they have going for on the attacking end. It feels like most of the guys going for on the attack is not really showing much. The only guy that I think on the attack that has consistently performed is surprisingly Joe Klaus. And I say surprisingly, even though I don't think there's a lot of surprise because we know that if you give him service, he can definitely put the ball into the back of net. Though there's been times where he hasn't really quite done that. I mean, look at what happened in the CONCACAF Champions Cup first leg game against Mount Pleasant. But for the most part, he's been a very good number 9. It's been worth every set that the Galaxy have paid for him. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Joveljic doing his time with the Galaxy, but the rest of the guys beside him has not picked up the slack. I mean, Painto and Peck, both of those guys had a really rough start to the season. And then, as we all always say, it's kind of like an annual tradition when we talk about the LA Galaxy, their defense is not good. I mean, it feels like that's kind of the thing we always say, and it's kind of the same problem again. And not to mention, it also doesn't help the fact that their defense not only is not good, but they have a problem right now where they're doing a revolving door when it comes to the goalkeeping spot. There's been times where they put JT in, there's been times that they put Mikovic in, and when you have a revolving door in the goalkeeping position, you're not going to be very good on the defensive end, no matter if both of your goalkeeper are doing relatively well in the season. Then we look at Austin FC. Austin is kind of an interesting team to talk about because, on paper, it hasn't really been a great start for Nico Estevez team. I mean, I know some Austin fans kind of feel like this is the same old compared to last season as well, and their defense isn't really as good as we saw last season as well as time. But I will say that even though I know they only scored 5 goals so far this season, and I know this might be crazy for me to say if you're an Austin fan, but I do think there's a slight improvement on the attack. I mean, yes, the goal scoring and the finishing that's been left a lot to desire, but it feels like there's more dynamism going forward on the attacking end, especially with Falcao Torres. Seems like he's brought some of that, though he still are trying to get going. I don't think he has scored a goal so far for this Austin team. And then bringing Christian Ramirez, I think that's a decent signing as well, as we've already seen him score a goal with Austin on his debut. The attack is definitely a little bit better, but I don't think it's enough where you can say that, yeah, there's been some really frustrating resort that Austin have suffered. That first game of the season against Minnesota was definitely the first of that, and then they got that 0-0 draw against DC United. I'm pretty sure Austin fans must get PTSD every time they see a 0-0 resort at them not scoring at home. Consider that was a huge problem for them last season as well. But I do think that as crazy as this might sound, I do think that they are a little bit improved, especially on the attacking end. But they're just not getting the resort that they are, and they're of course dropping points to teams that I think they absolutely should do much better. Now, in 12th place, it's one of my other team that is Minnesota United. So as I said many times before, yes, I know the Loons have got off to a terrible start. I know the fan base are panicking, and I know that there's even some that question Cam Knowles in terms of his job security, especially with the recent hiring of Danny Cruz from Louisville City, which I think that's a really good hiring from Minnesota as one of the assistants. Seems like it's a move that now really kind of put the pressure on Cam Knowles because if you can't deliver, then they definitely have a head coach that has a lot of good quality in the USL that always seems like he's a guy that I think deserve a chance in MLS, and he's just waiting around the wing to ready to take over that job. But again, as much as I know it hasn't been a great start for the Loons, and there's obviously a lot of problem when it comes to this team. Their scoring and defense has been a huge issue. Goal scoring, like last season where the goals started drying up. It kind of is the same case again this season. And then 11 goals conceded. Keep in mind, more than half of that came in one game against Vancouver, which was arguably the worst game I've ever seen the Loons have played in franchise history. In fact, it's not even arguably; it is the worst loss in Minnesota United history, clipping that 6-1 beatdown that they had against Atlanta in that snow opener at TCF Bank Stadium. But yeah, as bad as things are, you got to also remember this team has arguably the toughest schedule out of any team. I've said this before in my season preview about the Loons. I would not be surprised if this team get off to a slow start. I would not be surprised if this team might struggle coming out of the game, mainly because with a new head coach. And the system that Cam knows is completely different than what Eric Ramsey is setting. It's going to take time for the players to learn this system and trying to not revert back to old ways that I've seen at times where they have kind of done that, revert back to Ramsey ball of just being too defensive and not showing enough ability to keep the ball and also built from the back itself. But also, again, the tough schedule, it also doesn't help as well. And I know that might sound like an excuse, and also one that just kind of shows you that I don't think this team is considered to be the elite of the Western Conference anymore. But I'm not expecting that. I knew this season it was going to be a step back, and in some ways, it's a bit of a transitional year for the Loons with the new head coach coming in and the new style. But give it times. If when they do face against some easy opponent, now if they are losing against easy opponent and they're not winning games against teams that they should be beating. Yeah, then that's when I have some huge concern, and that's when I think his job security might be in jeopardy. But for now, I'm not that concerned just yet. Even where they are in the standings right now, and I know some people might say that this is kind of me being hopping those hopium about the Loons so far in the beginning of the season. But when you have to face the likes of Vancouver, San Diego, Seattle, and even in the East with FC Cincinnati and Nashville, I mean, most teams would struggle against those kind of opponent at least in the first couple of games to start the season as well. Then we look at St. Louis City, who has a 1-1-3 record currently with 4 points, fresh off their big win against New England. Goal scoring is definitely a problem for this team, but I think everybody saw this coming. Everybody knew St. Louis was going to have problem scoring goals, and here we are with them only scoring 4 goals this season. 3 of them came in the last game as well. So prior to this game, they've only scored 1 goal in their first 4 games, and they conceded 7 goals so far with a -3 goal differential. Again, it's pretty clear what St. Louis needs to do. They need some goal scoring difference maker, and I'm pretty sure Corey Ray will do that in the summer. But I will say that one thing that St. Louis fan, as frustrated as they are in terms of how the attack is, remember, just like Minnesota, this is a team that has a new system that they're kind of implement with Jordan that may probably be a more of a possession kind style, and the fact that he clearly just does not have the player to run that style as well. Not to mention, I think the defense have definitely dramatically improved compared to last season. They're not leaking goals left, right, and center as we've seen the last couple of years. Now they just got to figure out the goal scoring part, and that's where it's not easy to figure out, especially when you just clearly do not have the talent to do so. And we kind of knew it from the beginning of the season as well. And then we look at the Portland Timbers. So yeah, the Portland Timbers 1-1-3 with 4 points. Scored 7 goals so far, conceding 12 with a -5 goal differential. Obviously, everybody's going to talk about their defense of how bad it's been. It's gotten a little better. At least in the last game that was one of the rare time where the Timbers don't concede more than 2 goals a game. It feels like it's a regular theme for Phil Neville's side. And I know Phil Neville is under immense pressure. I even said that he might be the next head coach to go in this league because he's not getting the resort for this Timbers side. And there's no doubt the Timbers have not played well at all to begin the season in all the games that they play. Even in the one that they won against Columbus and on the opening weekend, they won that on the last minute as well. Have they not won that game, they would be winless right now. They're the only winless team in the West. So I would say, I said that there's a lot of really good teams so far. I think these last 2 teams, maybe you can even include St. Louis and Minnesota, are really kind of where the quality really dropped in the Western Conference, which Speaking of Sporting KC, that's where we talk about them as them being in dead last in the West. Nobody was surprised by that. Everybody knew that this team is probably going to be finishing near the bottom, if not at the bottom of the Western Conference, with 1-1-3 record. Currently with 4 points, they're in the midst of this first year of a deep and painful rebuild. As I always say with Sporting KC, and I know maybe Sporting KC fans might not agree with me on this, but I actually don't think they're as bad as some people think that they are. They're showing the effort, and that's what I've been always preaching about Sporting KC. Where when you're in a rebuild kind of season, especially in the first year of a deep and painful rebuild, there is going to not only be some growing pains, but you need to show some fight and at least show some effort in some of the games to prove that, yeah, there are some progress that is to be made. And I really think Sporting KC have done bad. Yes, I know the last game was bad. Like the one that got blown out by Colorado. The last 15 minutes was definitely an example of them not showing that effort. But if you ignore that, they actually play well, at least for the first 75 minutes. And really the only game I can think that they really didn't show any effort whatsoever and look like a team that is going to win the wooden spoon and are just such horrendous this team that maybe deserved to be relegated to USL is the first game of the season against the San Jose Earthquakes. That is really the only game I can say that they didn't put an effort in at all in these games. I mean, all the games that they played, they have put in the effort. They have made their opponent kind of earn the victory, and that's at the end of the day. That is what Sporting KC fans are looking for, and what the expectation is for this team. Again, I know that sounds like a very low bar to set, and maybe that's just kind of like me trying to cherry pick and maybe kind of put sugarcoating a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's just reality when it comes to going for a deep rebuild and just completely bottom out, because it's no doubt that the Sporting KC team has bottomed out, and now it's up to them in terms of trying to crawl their way back up, and it's not going to definitely happen in this first year. It might not even happen in next year as well. But one thing I will at least say about this team that maybe we could show some promise, and maybe there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for Sporting KC fans to look at. The effort is definitely there, especially the attack. The attack has been pretty good, even though I know it doesn't show it on the goal scoring chart of them only scoring 5 goals so far this season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Western Conference and the standings throughout the first 5 weeks. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please guys, like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.